I'd like to start by defining deep tech. So let's kick off a round of 30 seconds each to define what deep tech is before kicking off panel and talking about how these cutting edge technologies would be reshaping our future.
Sure. I think I want to talk about deep tech maybe from an African perspective, I would say. Um, I would describe it as a technology that is going to solve problems that maybe before we weren't thinking they could be solvable or that we had solutions for them. The lack of information, maybe also the issues that we're currently having with the increased like number of populations in different countries and how we can provide them with the right infrastructure. There was a lot of talk yesterday about this issue. So deep tech or AI could be a solution for that, and we can make things a lot more efficient, especially if we find ways to use this technology with the help of the governments and collaborating between the private and the public sector. So this is my own, I would say, like definition of the applications of AI and deep tech in Africa. And I would think I would say like the revolution or like the more development is going to create on the continent rather than in other places in the world. And this is my own, I think, point of view.
Okay. Mahdi, can you give us your own deep tech definition?
Well, I don't know if I have one personal definition, but I will kind of use what's my understanding of it. I think deep tech or deep tech technology refers to companies, typically startups that focus on developing groundbreaking technology rooted in advanced scientific research and engineering innovation. Usually these kind of technologies that are supported by or used by these startups that address significant social and environmental challenges, such as climate tech, climate change, healthcare, and sustainable energy. Usually, this kind of startups requires a lot of substantial investment in research and development and have a longer time to market compared to more consumer-focused technology. I mean, they often like operate in fields like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, quantum computing, and robotics.
Okay, thank you very much. Marwa, please.
So for me, I think deep tech is based on advancement, scientific and engineering, significant scientific and engineering advancement that should target like a big population, like a big market disruption, and solve a real-world problem in the sector of biotech, health tech, energy, AI. And also it's like deep tech in general is known, is different from the traditional tech, that it has a longer R&D cycle and a bigger or transformative impact. But also I wanted to add that we wrote like a white paper recently, with GIZ, like Our Digital Future in collaboration with the GIZ, where we it's called like Deep Tech Tunisia 2024, and we talked about the deep tech in Africa in general, in Tunisia, with statistics and everything you need to know about deep tech. It's going to be uploaded on our website soon, so I encourage everyone to have a look on it in a few weeks, hopefully.
Okay, so I think we all agree that deep tech, it's new, disruptive, cutting-edge technologies that are hard to replicate. So mainly it's not just an AI layer of or an AI application or a chatbot, and the startup would be a deep tech.
Can I add just one point?
Yes, yes, for sure.
Yes, I think especially for this point on research and development and how long it takes, to develop deep tech. Again, it's particularly, I would say, relevant and useful for Africa. Again, because of the lack of information, this effort that's being done right now to collect data is going to be very useful in the future for developing products and solutions that are going to really solve what like the challenges that we have on the continent.
Okay, so my next question to Ahlem also. Yassine talked about a new cycle. So do you think we are an inflection point where deep tech would be accelerating from an R&D perspective, accelerating the development of new technologies that would obviously reshape our future?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, we are, I'd say, like still at very early stages. There are a lot of challenges, and I'm not sure. Like earlier, I asked a question about also regulations and just how it's a bit difficult. Not a bit. It's actually very difficult to access information and to do these kinds of research. But once we have access to data, and once we start developing, we do have the willingness and we do have the brains, we do have people who are able to develop these kinds of technology. And once we connect that with the right data and with the right infrastructure, it's going to accelerate, definitely the creation of these solutions and, solve problems that were unsolvable before.
Okay, so Marwa, from your experience with Technoriat, do you think that entrepreneurs, investors, SSOs should reshape maybe their vision given the long R&D cycles of deep tech ventures?
Yeah, definitely. For example, if we target like researchers, like doctors or postdocs, that they already worked on something that could be impactful or have the potential to become something big. So we can actually start targeting research that has already been done in labs. Also, we can, for example, if we work closely, like SSOs, if they work closely with the universities on for example, PPP programs, or actually have like incubators inside universities, that way they can suggest new subjects to work on as like a master's or a PhD. Because unfortunately what's happening now in Tunisia is that people like work on certain research just to publish paper, and that's really unfortunate. It doesn't have any impact. It's not useful in the future. It's only useful to publish a mediocre paper with a small impact factor, and that's it. And unfortunately, researchers in Tunisia, they are not they don't know that they can do much more than that. So if you ask a researcher about their biggest ambition now, they would tell you directly to publish an article in a good paper, in a good journal. And if you see what's happening, for example, at Cambridge or like big universities, you will see that they actually start working on something to make an impact in the future. And we tried with Technoriat to raise awareness. We were able to raise awareness to 800 researchers 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the program just started. 134 researchers applied to our program, and we were able to actually do like an acceleration program for 34, and we were able to incubate 8 researchers that now became entrepreneurs. For the second cohort, we're trying to make like a much bigger impact to help even more researchers. But there are a lot of things that needs to be done in parallel to make this possible, because, like with Technoriat, we're trying our best to make an impact, to make a change, but we will need much bigger help from the government, from investors, from other SSOs to actually build maybe a task force to help researchers much more. Also for investors, I would suggest that maybe investors could take the risk to invest in researchers at early stages, because investors, especially now in Tunisia, they are a bit afraid of investing in research in deep tech in general. While we were like creating the white paper, we had the opportunity to talk with many successful startups in Tunisia, including InstaDeep, for example, where I had the opportunity to interview Karim, also Cumulus, and all of them, they were not able to fundraise in Tunisia till they actually went to France to fundraise, and it's really unfortunate to see like a startup like InstaDeep not able to fundraise in Tunisia. So I'll like suggest that actually investors take the risk to invest in startups in Tunisia before it's too late. Now, if you ask the investors that talk to InstaDeep at an early stage, they would really regret it, and we don't want that to happen again.
Okay. So the next question will be to Mahdi, as he worked a lot of with in the African continent. Do you think that deep tech would the deep tech technologies would widen the gap between the African continent and the developed world, or would be the inverse?
Actually, I mean, the gap is there. I mean, obviously, I mean, we talked about, I mean, during these last 2 days about this gap. I think there is like ways to leapfrog this kind of gap. I mean, sometimes, I mean, using some kind of collaboration, I mean, within countries in the continent, for example, because at the end of the day, we don't have the means of other developed countries, and we need to use what we have in a more, how to say, efficient way. So mutualizing the resources on the continent would be a way of reducing that gap, or at least somehow finding a way of finding a solution, I mean, to this widening gap. I mean, as you know, I mean, on the continent we have several challenges. I mean, they start with access to electricity. They can also, I mean, basic developmental challenges. But when you also take this layer of additional challenges that we are facing due to the new technology, and then the need to catch up, I think the only way is like to mutualize what we have as resources and try to use the talents pool that we have on the continent. I mean, the scarce resources that we have. That would be a way of reducing that widening gap. But the gap is there. We are aware of it, and most probably we need to address it. And policymakers need also to do their part, hand in hand with the private sector. And hopefully there are opportunity also with certain technologies like to leapfrog. Like we've seen like several experiences on the continent with previous technology waves. For example, I mean, with the mobile technology, people didn't need the wired network, so they just leapfrog that. So let's have this perspective and find opportunity to leapfrog. I mean, certain using the technologies, but at the same time, I mean, find a way also to mutualize the existing resources on the continent and work together to get to be able to reduce that gap and move forward.
You said the word policy and policymakers. How the policymakers and policies can play a substantial role into shaping the deep tech ecosystem and fostering the deep tech ecosystem in the African continent. So at least the gap is there, but at least we catch up to that gap.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, we can take the example of the Startup Act for Tunisia, like that created kind of a bubble that startups could like live out of the regular business environment, and then that allowed for the emergence of like 1,034, I think, startups. So I think the government also need to create this kind of enabling environment, working on several aspects. I mean, research and development incentives, I mean, putting some kind of tax credit deduction for company investing in R&D. This is a way also of putting more incentive for corporates to invest in R&D, so that would be also funding available for startups, or like for people who have like some deep tech technology that needs to be supported. Grants and subsidies, you know that government is providing a lot of financing, especially for early stage technology. So that's also would be very useful. And I think there is other aspects like intellectual property protection. So I mean, having a streamlined patent processes to have also strong IP laws. But at the end of the day, if you have a good technology and a good innovation, if it's not protected by law, it might be also lost. So I think that's key to supporting the deep tech. Regulatory sandboxes also, it's a way also of creating some kind of environment that would allow, for example, for deep tech companies to test the ground and to test their innovation. Testing environments is key to see, I mean, to validate technology, to see the commercial viability of this new technology. So that's, and then also the need also to have effective public-private partnerships as well. I mean, as the innovation flow from the academia to the corporate world, to transform the public sector, there is a need of gateways, of ways that will allow this innovation to find their ways to the market. And this requires a lot of partnerships. And of course, education, workforce development, I think this was mentioned earlier in the discussion. I mean, having a strong STEM education and ensures a steady pipeline of skilled workers for deep tech industries, and training programs, or offering training, reskilling programs that can help workers adapt to new technology and meet the demand of deep tech sectors. And the last point, I think, that's have been also mentioned, I think, yesterday, regarding data privacy and data protection. There should be some clear guidelines for data privacy and security that can help build trust in deep tech solution, particularly those involving AI and big data. And providing resources and support for startups to comply with data privacy regulation can reduce barriers to entry for some of them. Yeah, so this kind of regulatory measures can create a more supportive environment for deep tech startups, helping them to innovate and scale more effectively.
Okay, what are your thoughts on this, Marwa, as you acted on a PP, on a public-private project with Technoriat? What is the role of policymakers and the administration to foster innovation in deep tech ecosystem?
I would say that the role is fundamental to advance and to actually bridge the gap and not widen it, because for many researchers right now they struggle with a lot of regulations that is not very clear in Tunisia, because it's new in Tunisia. We're trying to advance, but we need to have the right base to advance. So, as I said, it's like mandatory to understand where we're going and to understand if what we're doing is worth it in the future, because some of the researchers, I met many, they start working on something and after a while they realize that it's not feasible in Tunisia or it's not scalable due to regulations. So I would say like SSOs and like policymakers in Tunisia need to work together to ensure that entrepreneurs are going to the right path.
Okay. So now I'd like to have your thoughts, Ahlem. You working on InstaDeep and working on advancing biomedical technologies. So deep tech in general, AI specifically, would be a killer of humanity or the savior of humanity?
That's a really tough question. I don't think I'm like the one to respond to that. I think let's be optimistic, I would say here, because AI and deep tech, so far we had a lot of breakthrough projects and findings thanks to deep tech and AI in the bio and medical sector. So I would say no, it's definitely not a killer of humanity. It's helping us advance. It's helping us make new findings that were not probably possible before. Also, like if we go back maybe to the COVID area and the research that happened to come up with the vaccines in very fast timeline, it saved the lives of many people, and without it, I wouldn't even imagine where we would be right now. So it's definitely saving humanity.
Okay, at Marwa, you've been working with peoples that are looking for drugs for cancer and green technologies. What are your thoughts on this philosophical and existential topic of deep tech and deep tech in general, AI specifically, regarding to the humanity and the advancement of the humanity?
I would say that we need more of these projects in worldwide, not only in Tunisia, because we have like I've met many startups, for example, working or researchers working on cancer or like on real world problems, and it's essential to actually focus on these kind of things. For example, there is an article published in Nature that shows that the genetic mutations in Africa and the diversity for the African population is 80% more diverse than the global population. 80%. And for example, the medications that we are using right now are not very adaptable to the African population. Only 0.3% of the African genome or data is used in the pharma companies worldwide.
Okay.
So all the most of the medication that we are using are not adaptable to our genome makeup. So if we find like startups or researchers working on this in Africa for the genome, for the African genome, is game changer, because it's something that is more adaptable to our genome makeup, and it's like a huge deal because our genome is 80% more diverse, and we need like specific treatment, specific medication, specific molecules that would work with us and not any other population. So for example, this could be like a game changer in Africa in general, and there are like some companies and some researchers working on this right now. In Africa, Nigeria, for example, we have like one working on the like the North African genome in Tunisia here, and this could make a real big difference. Same thing, for example, for one of the, I would say, one of the most impactful startups in Tunisia, like Cumulus. They are doing like a great job in helping us manage the natural resources in Tunisia, which is impressive. And this could be like scalable worldwide as well, because like the natural resources, it's a big like challenge that we're living worldwide right now, and finding startups like them is essential to moving forward. So yeah, I would say like we want more of this research. We want more of these entrepreneurs to keep us moving forward and living better and having a more having a better strategy to manage our resources and to live healthier in case of genetic startup.
Okay. As let's get back to regulators, and Mahdi, I'd like to have your thoughts on the regulators' dilemma. You see, China are giving a lot of space for AI deployment. The Americans are a bit fearful of the AI deployment, and at the same time they are fearful that they may not catch up later if they regulate AI or deep technologies who are very much powerful, and they are used in defense tech, space tech, whatever. So, what are your thoughts on regulating these cutting-edge technologies? Should we regulate more, or should we let more innovation foster in that space, and then we'll see what happens?
Thanks. This is actually a tough question. But I mean, I think there is no one size fits all. So I mean, in certain countries, regulation are very important, in others are less important. So I mean, it depends of the country's environment. So I mean, for example, you can look, for example, at the startup ecosystem. For example, in Egypt, they don't have a startup act. I mean, but they have like emergence of a lot of startups. So I think that for example, but in Tunisia, if we didn't have the Startup Act, we would not be able to have that critical mass of startups, and then all these mechanisms that have been built around the Startup Act that allowed for our ecosystem to thrive. So I would say the role of regulation depends from country to others. I think in terms of public policy, I think for that early stage, especially on the African continent, there is a lot of need to educate public policy makers. I mean, so they can understand more what's at stakes. If they don't put the right environment, the enabling environment that would help deep tech to thrive in their countries, that might be. But in other countries, maybe laissez-faire, laissez-aller would be the right way to doing it. So there is, as I said, there is no one size fits all, and then all the regulators right now are kind of catching up with the technology. So there is no best way so far. So we are still learning as we go. If you look at the AI regulation, I mean, US has AI Act. It was last spring. EU, it was this summer. So we're still learning on that in that field. But I mean, for countries where government intervention are very strong, I think having regulation would be a way also of setting the path for deep tech startups to grow. In others, maybe regulation would come afterwards. After few years, with the practice, it will emerge afterwards. So that's my take on this.
Okay, thank you very much. Ahlem, I'd like to have your insights about the power of AI, and will the digitalization have democratized business opportunities and opportunities around the world? And would AI democratize further business opportunities and technology development around the world, or would be several actors that would take all the value?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think it should be, I mean, looking at the challenges that are at the moment, either in developing countries or in the advanced world, it is, again, going back to the issue of data and access to data. Maybe right now we can say that this enabler, which is the data, is being held by the biggest companies, or there is some kind of very big competitive advantage for these big companies to be the leaders and be the first people to create these inventions and do have these findings. But if we use, I would say, the intervention of regulators, as he mentioned just now, or if we have all the people intervening from the ecosystem, either regulator, researchers, startups, everyone working together, then everyone will be able to work on solving these issues. But the state as it is right now, it's not possible for any startup or for any company to work on deep tech and AI and for them to be able to create breakthrough technologies. This is what's happening right now, I would say. So yes, it is some single actors creating maybe inventions in different parts of the world. But if we have access later on, if we have access, I say later on, to data, to the correct or to relevant regulations, so it will be more happening more in different parts of the world, and it will be democratized. But yeah, I would say this is not the case right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I think they told me we have 2 minutes left, so thank you very much for your insights. So let's give the attendants the right for
Q&A,
a couple of questions. Yes.
There you go, first question.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the very insightful, discussion and the topics. I have 2 questions, in fact, one for Marwa and one for Ahlem. For the first is indeed, I mean, you raise a very, very important question about the issue about the genome of Tunisia or so. In fact, I've been in many countries, I mean, in Africa, and there is an awareness about this, but there is no action because of the lack of the means, lack of talents, lack of experts, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is something very, very important, as you mentioned it. It's a really game changer for the medicine and the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, for the continent, it's, frankly speaking, it's so stupid, really, to have some medicine, I mean, for the continent, which responding only to 0.3% of the genomic, how to say, model, I mean, of Africa. So it is mandatory, I think. Yes. I mean, to probably, I mean, to suggest you, I mean, here from Africa Arena, a task force for all Africa, really to work for a genomic model for the whole continent in order to be able to raise the funding. You have really to advocate through the World Health Organization or something like that, in order really to have your own, how to say, genomic map, let's say, I mean, for the continent. This is one. For Ahlam, in fact, thank you very much. You've been really going around, I mean, how really to be able really to solve a lot of problems through deep tech, AI, etc. But let me give you an example on education, for example. I mean, there is one report, I mean, published by the African Development Bank and also by the United Nations Development Program, I think 3 years ago, speaking about the education issue in Africa. I mean, by the year 2030, 200 million students or pupils should be in the class, should really take courses. Or according to these studies, I mean, even, I mean, all the public institutions and all the DFI in the world, if they inject their money, they can only educate 60 million out of 200 million students. They have really to be taught, I mean, by the year 2030. The remaining, I mean, 140 million should be really educated by the private sector. This is what's the one of the conclusion of the study. So it's really difficult really to be able really to do it. So I mean, it should be, I mean, a solution for that. Part of the solution is that students cannot really go to school the 6 days a week. They have really to go 2 days, and then another group 2 days, and another group 2 days. Yes, we can really use the facility and multiply and triple the number of the students. But on the other side, you have really to have a lot of computers, a lot of, I mean, access to the network, money to be able, creating also the material, the courses. I mean, for all these needs indeed deep tech to be able really to get access with online courses, I mean, to the students. And also it needs, I don't know if you remember one day, Kofi Annan launched, I mean, an excellent and very beautiful project, the computer with $100. Remember all of you? I mean, the computer with one, but it never see the day. I mean, this project never appear, you know, and it never implemented. But today we need all these kind of solutions to be able to educate Africa. And when we educate Africa, of course, you will have all these talents to be able to offer the solution, I mean, to the continent. I mean, so these two things, frankly speaking, something which really worry, I mean, about how they can really be done, I mean, in Africa. Thank you.
So it's more comments. There is no.
I mean, this is a suggestion, I mean, about the task force for genome, for mapping, I mean, for Horn of Africa. And for Ahlam, she works on EdTech. Yeah. She is also, I mean, in the company. So how really we can really solve this educational burning problem?
Okay. Another question? Is there another question? Okay, Professor, we answer that and wrap up the panel. Thank you, Zefidin.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, Ahlam.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Do you want to start first? You got the first question.
It's more like a suggestion for me.
It's a suggestion, I think. Yeah, it's
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think maybe answering that, I can actually give a concrete example from something that's currently happening, and also from my experience. I studied at the African Leadership University, and we didn't have normal classroom. We don't go to classes every day, so we had something called connected classrooms, and we study online. You study at your own pace, and you follow your education. If you had questions, we had sometimes like to attend sessions with our professors, but the studying part itself, you have to study at your own pace, then you study with your peers online, and then you get quizzes and tests online based on your own learning. So whatever you studied, you get tested on online on the platform that we had. So this is a solution that's actually happening. It's been happening since 2015, thanks to some innovative mind that we have right now on the continent. And now it even moved to a more developed stage where graduates of the university get into a program called The Room, where they get connected based on their skill sets to job opportunities in the continent. They are staying in the continent, but working at big companies. I mean, I worked, as I told you, in EdTech. I worked at Meta, and now I'm in Studeep. We have people working in AWS. We have people working in Microsoft right from their homes, and they did study remotely. So these solutions exist. Maybe just there are like some single actors just doing the work in different places around the continent. But yeah, hoping that this will be more generalized, and why not happening in Tunisia as well. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the panelists. So to wrap up, we are on the verge of we are on a new era of technologies and cutting edge technologies. We should be bullish. We should be more optimistic about this technology development and technology fostering into Africa, so that we can catch up, and the future might be bright, and we should be optimistic about it, and not very defensive about it. And we'll see. We'll adjust as human beings. We'll adjust with whatever it happens. Thank you very much.